or poem that we have examined in our study of literature, but occasionally it does not require literary inspiration. Rather, it sprouts from the student seed pieces and grows from the fertile minds and hearts of the student authors into a unified collection. This year, without discussion or conscious intention, the junior class chose the theme of family for their memoir. They wrote stories of support, personal growth, friendship, distress, disappointment, and loss. The class of 2019 Junior Memoir Collection, simply titled Family, marks a decade of Hoboken High School students exploring their past as they discover the courage to write with honesty, passion, and art. Welcome to our celebration. First up, reading their memoir entitled Angela, we have Brianna Cortez.
Good morning. My memoir is dedicated to my little brother. His hand could safely in mine as we began to take a step off the curb. I looked down at this beautiful little boy, ensuring his safety. It was hard to think just 7 years ago I was the last child. The sun was beaming, causing droplets of sweat to drip from my forehead down to my chin. Women dressed in shorts and tank tops carried umbrellas. Sounds of children chattering, cars honking, and the ice cream truck driving by rang through the air. "You guys can cross, sweetie," the crossing lady instructed from her bright neon yellow vest. I nodded and grinned as we approached the other curb. Screaming out of my grip, Angelo ran ahead. "Stay next to me," I yelled. Angelo yelled back at me, which made him notice everyone around us. "I'm hungry, Brianna." "We're going to McDonald's," I told him as his face moved into a huge smile. "Yes, you're the best sister in the world," he screamed as we walked along the sidewalk of Central Ave. I realized where he was standing and where I was standing. I gently pushed him to the side of the stores. Medium fries, apple slices, chicken nuggets, buffalo sauce. Don't forget to ask for 2 sauces. Medium fries, apple slices, chicken nuggets, buffalo sauce. Don't forget to ask for 2 sauces. Rang through my ear like an overload track. As we walked into McDonald's, the whiff of salted fries slapped me in the face. The screeching chairs gliding into the white marble tables passed through my ears, and the only conversation being exchanged was between the customer and cashier, who repeated, "Welcome to McDonald's, how may I help you?" After I placed our order, I walked towards the right back side of McDonald's. Angelo's footsteps tapped the floor gently as he followed behind. "Wait for me," I heard him yell. I snickered as I walked faster to tease him. "Stop, Brianna." He caught up, grabbed the food on my hand, and sat at the first table he saw open. "Angelo," I yelled. I felt like my mother aggravated with his actions. Our time at McDonald's consisted of bickering back and forth while we shoved our mouths with salted skinny fries and crispy chicken nuggets. Angelo took slow sips from his Coke. The echo from his gulps filled the quietness of McDonald's. I checked on my phone to see if there were any notifications, but as soon as I pressed the home button, a monstrous burp unexpectedly came from Angelo's mouth. I looked up at him with eyes open wide. I questioned how this loud burp managed to come from his little mouth. It was as if he had a megaphone, but this was no megaphone. This was Angelo. Angelo's laughter caused him to tear and blurt out, "That was funny, right?" I checked around to see if anyone stared at us with disgust written on their faces. As there weren't any stares, just my brother's tears hitting the table, while the funk from his burp filled the air. It was then when I looked at him and realized this was my brother, my little twin. I remember sneaking around the house the night I had figured out my mom was pregnant. My mom was on the phone, her voice loud enough to slither its way into my dream and wake me up. I opened my eyes to find her laying right next to me. Her body movements and the intensity of her voice shook the bed. It was a little thing she said that made me realize I was no longer the last child. "I'm going to need a carriage," she whispered. My eyes widened under the blanket. My thoughts were running all types of circles. What? I thought to myself, am I going to be the older sister? Oh no. My mom was pregnant and I had no idea. I knew my life was going to change whether I wanted to or not. The thought about changing diapers, sharing toys, sharing food kept me awake that night. I didn't realize the spotlight would slowly shift off of me and onto this little thing who came into the world 9 months later. It took a whole summer babysitting him, taking him out to eat, picking him up from summer school to help our bond grow stronger. I hate to admit that we share similar qualities, which explains all the bickering. God knows what my life would be like without him. I might have more freedom, but not as many smiles. I could have been more carefree, but not as responsible.
What is your favorite trait that your brother has?
The way he makes me smile when I'm feeling sad.
Hello there. My eyelids drearily forced themselves apart as my mother swung the bedroom door open and my mind slowly powered up after a night of surrealist dreams. She stood in the doorway and let the morning light flow in from the apartment windows. The sunlight reached through the living room and into the dark bedroom, a ghostly pale blue. The area was near featureless in the darkness, and drowsiness dwarfed much of my senses. She stepped past the door and spoke in a voice like a velvet blanket. Grandpa Roy died last night. A train hit my chest and my eyes widened. I swallowed a few times and attempted to vanquish a sticky morning dryness in her mouth. What? How did it happen? I asked. Last night he had me rushed off to a hospital. I stared at her, my head still glued to the pillow. My thoughts were scrambled eggs. He woke up and started having a heart attack. What? She wasn't making sense. He started having a heart attack, she repeated. Every day I spent at my grandparents' house, the decay of his body was ever present. He was pale and slept more and more. His limbs were thin and they shook when he moved. I would look over the bright blue Vancouver Island coastline as he dissolved the equally blue pills into a pink medicinal concoction, using more and more medicine each year, growing more and more languid. As his breathing faded, an oxygen mask accompanied him in his sleep. Your aunt ran over to be with him. My eyes blanked and the vision of Grandpa returned. Every breath he took sounded like Darth Vader when the machine was on. Healthy people don't use machines like that when they sleep. Despite his physical condition, everything else about him was perfectly healthy. He had always been lively and fun every time I saw him. So many hours watching Pixar movies, laughing and playing. He died peacefully, she continued. We got a call from Auntie Allison right after and she was crying. He really was dead. Over a decade of vacations and visits from one side of the continent to the other forever changed. My mom began sitting by my bed, the warm press of her hand flowing through the blanket. The train finished passing through my chest and left an empty cavity in its trail. I kept gazing at her, but my eyes stared blankly past, never crying. They'll be arranging a funeral soon. Your dad will have to head over. Never crying. I listened to the sound of my mother's voice. Every time I heard about or witnessed a reaction to death, it always involved leaking out eyes and sobbing. Years ago, when Spot the cat went for his final trip to the vet, I was a tsunami of tears. So where were they now? I felt for the cavity, but my mind never grasped that chunk of emotion. Instead, I grasped apathy. We can take a day off school if you want. That'd be nice, I replied. The distant blue lights spilling through the partly open door shifted to familiar yellows, so my retinas adjusted. And this is a terrible thing, but we can't stay sad about it forever. When Grandpa Wall died, his funeral was lively. People cried, but we were all telling stories about his life, joking, drinking. One big Irish party. I smiled. So if there's anything you want to do today, let me know. All right, sure. The light from the doorway illuminated every book, toy, and trinket lighting the shelves in my room as she spoke. Can we go to GameStop? I asked. She smiled. Sure. Any games you're interested in? Maybe a Kirby game. That'd be fun. She lowered her head down for a kiss, which I proceeded to roll my head away from. She laughed, stepped out of the bedroom and opened the door wide enough to make the shadows stagger back and flee. I thought about that sadness, whether I should keep searching for it, wherever this reactionless cavity had to be filled. After a few minutes of idleness, I pushed off inviting more from my big mother to step past the door.
So Pierce, what was your favorite memory with your Uncle Roy?
Well, Grandpa, but I think there's a lot of stuff, but I definitely the Pixar movies are the ones that stand out the most because he always enjoyed watching animated movies, and it was just a great family bonding experience.
Next up, we have Lewis reading his memoir titled October 16th.
October 16th. For the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future. Jeremiah 29:11. The date was October 16, 2008. It was just a normal Friday morning. I woke up, my mother was already in the kitchen making breakfast, and my father was asleep. I went to the living room to go eat breakfast. I got dressed, gave my mom and dad a hug, and left, not knowing that would be the last hug I would give my dad. The day was fairly uneventful until I got out of school. I was outside in the Wallace basketball court, waiting to be picked up. My dear Joy grabbed me and brought me to my aunt's. I was very confused, but I didn't complain. I love my aunt's house. I just figured it was a regular visit. The drive to my aunt's house was pretty normal. She got me Burger King on the way, and we picked my cousin up from karate. Once we got to our house, my cousin and I played all night as per usual. Little did I know the next morning, I would receive the worst news I could think of. It was a chilly Saturday morning, around 9 a.m. My cousin and I were surprised to hear a soft voice, "Boys, come downstairs." We walked downstairs and sat on the couch. My aunt was sitting in a chair, looked at me with her head down and said, "Honey, I don't know how else to tell you this, but Daddy died." My mind went blank. All my thoughts just left. I felt as though I was in a dream. I realized it was real when I felt my cousin pat my back. I was so in shock that I could only utter the words, "Okay." It was a kind of relaxed day after that. I reflected, dealing with the fact that my father was not coming home again. Throughout my childhood, my father had been in and out of the hospital frequently due to emphysema. I knew one day it would happen, but it seemed so sudden. That day, something in me changed, like a switch. From boy to man. I was the man of the house now. The time for games were over. A couple weeks later, my family and I had a memorial. He was not a fan of sadness. He wouldn't want us to dwell on the loss of him, but rather celebrate his life and reflect the unforgettable moments we had with him. And we did. We watched a ton of home movies on a projector and felt as though that day he really moved over. In a way, I feel like his death was meant to happen sooner rather than later. He had spent most of his adult life in oxygen tanks taking medicine. It was not a very pleasant situation. Although he had smiled through it and tried to cover the horrible reality of it, I feel like this moment was meant to make me the man I am today, the man that I've been since I was 8 years old. I thank my mother for not giving up on me and always believing me. I thank my aunt for being the best feeling father I could have ever asked for. I thank my brother and sister for always making sure I'm okay. And I would also like to thank the coaches and role models that I've had that have positively impacted me and for giving me the opportunities I thought I wouldn't have. Thank you guys.
What was one positive outcome?
Probably just maturing when I did, and just making sure everything was okay in the house, and making sure I'm not.
Next up, we had Azriel reading his memoir entitled Escape.
The sun beat through the shades in my window, and I woke to the sound of birds singing. I emerged out of my huge, soft, like cloud bed. Took a long, big stretch, and I walked across the hall to the bathroom to brush my teeth and brush my hair. Afterwards, I woke everyone up, and they started their daily routine. My mom went to the kitchen to make breakfast for everyone. It was like any other Saturday, peaceful, happy, and playful. After we ate breakfast, we all went to the living room to watch TVs and play with the toys we got stored in a chest. We spent the morning laughing and playing. Lunchtime was beginning to draw near. No one noticed that the sky was starting to dim, slowly dim. Before we knew it, lunchtime had arrived, and it was my stepfather's turn in the kitchen. He made us some sandwiches and some chips on the side. As we sat at the dinner room table, eating, a wall of darkness passed into the room. Clouds were beginning to take over the sky. After lunch, my brothers and I went back into the living room to continue watching TV and playing. My mom and my stepfather went into their room. My stepfather had a jump on Monday, and my mother would always pack his gear. It started getting darker and darker each minute that passed while they were in the room. My brothers and I were watching TV. It was Pokemon, one of our favorite shows. Then suddenly, the sky turned pitch black, so dark we couldn't see the houses across the street. A loud roar echoed through the house. My brother and I were scared at first, but then we calmed down. We continued watching TV, then I got off the couch, started walking over to my mom and stepfather's room and asked them if we could sleep in the living room. When I got to the room, I stopped at the doorway. A flash of white light filled the whole house. My eyes were wide open. I was frozen. What I saw was unbelievable. My stepfather had his gun pressed against my mother's head. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there like a statue. Streams started to pour down my face, hitting the floor like raindrops. My mom was trembling. Her back was up against the wall. She had nowhere to go. I wanted to save her, but what could I do? I was just a child. I tried to move, but I couldn't. I was frozen solid. The words I heard my stepfather say made me drop to my knees. He said, "You sorry excuse for a wife. Can't even pack my gear. I'll blow your brains out." He pressed the gun against her head harder. I cried out, "No, stop it, leave her alone." My stepfather took his gun off her head and put it back in his holster. They both looked at me. My mom ran over to me and hugged me. I hugged her back, and that's when the waterworks began to gush out of my eyes. I'd never been so scared in my life. As I kneeled in the doorway, threw my eyes out. They finished preparing for his jump on Monday. My mom walked me back to the living room while my stepfather laid in his bed to go to sleep. It was only me, my mom, my brothers in the living room. Just the five of us were watching TV. A few hours had passed and my stepfather was completely asleep. I just couldn't stop thinking about what I saw and heard. I was terrified. And then my mom got up and stood in front of us, and she whispered, "We're going to leave without your stepfather knowing, but we have to do it when he's gone for a long time." I felt relief. I thought to myself, the hell that we were living in is finally over. We wouldn't have to deal with that mentally unstable man anymore. A new beginning to open its door for us, and our lives are going to get better. The sun came out, shining brighter than ever, and the birds singing louder. These were the signs that everything was about to change for the better.
So Andrew, what did you learn from this terrible experience?
What I learned was that my mom is very strong and independent, and she looks out for her whole family.
Now we have Ariana Santiago singing Hallelujah.
the comfort and stillness her voice brought. All I could think was how I should have replied to all of her outdated chain messages she sent me every day. Every time I wake up, I am reminded that I should thank God for waking up that morning. Every evening, I am reminded to never give up on anything, no matter how hard things may seem to be. Finally, every night, I am reminded to go to sleep without a worry. He's watching over you. She always believed that no matter what, God always had a plan for everything. At this point, I've run out of tears of cry, tears of pain, tears of joy, and tears of relief. On the day of her funeral, the tears continuously ran down my face. I could not bear the thought of her being gone. Everyone she knew over the years came to her funeral and even more sent her condolences. I just felt like I could have prevented her death some way, somehow. I repeatedly asked, why did he have to take her? Her name was Joanne People, or as I knew her, Grandma. I could tell 2018 was not going to be a good year. First, my uncle Tony passed away a couple of days before my grandmother, and my cousin's grandmother passed away shortly after. God was taking all of his 6 children away and returning them home to live in paradise. Taking away the pain they had to endure for all of these years. My grandmother suffered for a long time with a disease called COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which meant she had a sort of cold all the time and was unable to breathe on her own. After all of the tears that ran down my face that day, I reminisced about all of the good times and many laughs we shared. Everyone who knew her, everyone she knew that she would always have a famous hammer with her. Whenever you were in trouble, you knew Grandma would always be there with her hammer. My cousin and I would hide it from her so that she would hopefully forget about it. But she would always find it. It's like the hammer grew feet and walked her every time. Or she had hidden cameras all over the house. I just sat there thinking about all of the times we shared and started to cry even more. This lady would lack wisdom into us with the whooping she would give to me and my cousin. When I found out she had passed, my heart broke into many pieces, like a glass shattered inside me, stabbing and pricking over and over. Her death has taught me that you should always appreciate what's in front of you because it can be gone in a blink of an eye.
So, what was your favorite memory with your grandma?
Watching the Temptations, like that was time when we sing every song.
So next up we have Nabe. Her number is private, so if there's any little kids who are in the auditorium, if they could just exit the auditorium and return when she's done. Thank you.
The smell of fresh baked cookies filled the room as my grandmother got up from the Chancellery couch. I loved whenever she went into the kitchen because I knew she was always coming back with the treat. My grandmother placed a plate of sugar cookies next to me and we both smiled. She then sat next to me and we snuggled up under the covers as laughter filled in the house. We would always watch Tyler Perry movies together until we fell asleep. I always felt comfortable in my grandmother's arms because I knew I was safe. My grandmother's house is very different from my house because most of the things that happened in my home didn't happen in hers. My bedroom was supposed to be a safe place, but it was more like the worst place a child would ever want to be. There were Hannah Montana dolls and plenty of other toys. I even had a Hannah Montana bedspread. It was like walking into a toy store every time you opened my door. One cold night, as I lay on my bed watching cartoons, I suddenly heard the door to my room open. I saw his face. At first, I was excited until things got a little weird. He sat beside me on my pink sheets with the Hannah Montana design on them and moved my covers back so he could see a clear vision of my face. I asked, "What are you doing?" He responded, "Let's play a game." Me being only a kid, I said okay, but I didn't exactly know what kind of game he wanted to play. He told me to lay back and not to make a sound. I started to feel very sick to my stomach. As his fingers stroked my hair and I heard the sound of my colorful barrettes moving, goosebumps filled my arms as his hands made their way down to my stomach. He softly pulled my pants down and spread my legs open. I started to whine and asked him to stop. He told me if I spoke again, or even if I fell out while screaming, he was going to hurt me and my mother. He told me that she wouldn't believe anything. I said because she loved him more than she would ever love me. I lay there with only fear in my heart. It was like I could feel his soul inside of me just because he's younger. I cried in silence, and when he was finished, I had blood all down my legs and even on my sheets. My mother was sound asleep in the next room. All I wanted to do was run to her and cry, but I couldn't move because one of his arms were covered over my mouth and held my arms down. I cried even harder when he stood me up. He told me not to move, so I stood there until he took the sheets off my bed. Cold tears dripped down my face. He took the sheets off the bed and went into my dresser and dressed me in my Hannah Montana pajamas. Then he walked out and the sheets disappeared. My life was never the same after that day. After all these years of suffering, until the age 16, I finally realized that I couldn't keep dwelling on what has happened. And I realized what has happened has left a permanent mark, and I would not be allowed to move on from it. But forgiving him would help me in many ways, so I did.
So, what was a positive outcome from this?
I learned how to actually think anymore because there are people that actually are gonna help me, and those were like my family members.
So, now I will be reading my memoir titled Running on Empty. Absent, the act of not being in a place, at an occasion, or a part of something. The absence of my biological mother has always sat heavy in my heart. Imagine being a little kid looking for your mother and she's not there. She missed all the aspects of my life that mattered most: birthday parties, softball games, etc. Unfortunately, she did not have her priorities straight when she brought me and my siblings into this world. As a young girl, I never understood, but as I got older, I started to wonder, how could the person who brought me into this world be so careless? How could she choose drugs over her daughter? My family constantly reminded me that she would always love me, but that wasn't enough. She constantly made empty promises and got my hopes up for her only to walk out my life. However, everything happens for a reason. I'm glad my mother was the irresponsible parent that she was, because God blessed me with someone special who took her place, my Titi Carmen. My father has also been in and out of my life, but my aunt has contemplated for his inconsistent behavior by constantly showering me with love. She is someone special, someone who stepped up and took the responsibilities of motherhood and did an amazing job. She did not miss anything that occurred. She was the one person I could count on. The anger I had towards my real mother slowly started to dissipate because I had such a beautiful person to guide me. However, that anger reemerged 4 years ago when I lost her. Losing her was like losing my mother all over again, and that was when my whole life transformed and became pure chaos. It was Christmas Eve morning, 2013. I woke up happy like any kid on Christmas Eve, but that morning at 10:29 a.m., my aunt was pronounced dead. My younger brother and myself found her in her bed. "Diti, wake up." We tried everything to wake her up, but she didn't move. At first we thought she was playing, but then I realized something was wrong. I called another aunt. She told me to call 911 immediately. I did that and waited. After waiting for what felt like forever, the EMT arrived. I was told to leave her room. All I heard was my grandmother yelling and crying. I had an instant feeling that something was worse than I thought. My little brother and I went to the next room, and we were told that she was gone. I didn't shed a tear, yet I felt so sad. Why couldn't I cry? Everything felt so surreal. Her being gone did not hit me until her funeral. From that point, everything slowly started to change. I became more angry. I was older and desperately in need of a mother, more than ever. But I didn't have one. Who's going to be here for me now? Who's going to tell me the do's and don'ts as a female? A relationship between a mother and a daughter is something special, and I was missing out on that in every way, and it affected me. I didn't have anyone to go back and forth with, no one to come home and speak about all the drama in school, or to go get mani petties with. I didn't have what every girl needs, a mother. I was acting out, fighting, and letting my grades drop. This wasn't right, and I knew if she was here, she would not let me carry on that way. After years of putting myself into bad situations, it came to a point where I did not get over her death, but I learned to accept it. I learned to accept that even though I do not see her, I know she's always going to be here with me and will forever look over me. Now I'm a junior and I'm doing well. Everything I do is to make my biological mother know that I do not need her and to prove to her that I will not make the same mistakes she did. And even without her presence, I will ensure myself a bright future and a happy existence. Next up, we have Denise Peguero reading her memoir, Taking Opportunities.
Make sure you ask your parents about the trip, Denise. I can see you going to California with us. I somewhat brushed it off because in my head I didn't think I would ever be chosen to go on the Harvard Model Congress San Francisco trip. Several weeks later, there was an announcement for the club to meet in room 318. Mr. Huggins and Mr. DiBernardo stood in front of the room, calling each student one by one to their desk. Not expecting to be chosen, I kept saying, "Debbie, do you think we're going to get picked?" Moments later, I got called up, and my mind was in between excitement and confusion. "You're on the team." "I am?" A smile came across my face. "Yes, you are. You earned it." I was assigned to the historical committee and given a 12-page briefing, which I had to study in and out, in school, at home, and on the plane. Soon, the big day came. I entered the conference room. Tables were lined up in a rectangle. There were flags and placards around the tables. I searched for Italy's flags, and I started to walk towards it, and I stopped midway. What if I think I know the flag and I'm wrong? No, I know what I'm doing, I said to myself as I continued to walk to my seat. I sat down, wiped my hands on the side of my skirt, and took a deep breath. As I sat in the conference room at the Hilton Hotel in San Francisco, I thought to myself about how grateful I was to be there. And now, I was 2,900 miles away from Hoboken, working with people from around the world. I knew I had to step out of my comfort zone and make the best out of every moment. I started the conference with open ears and felt pretty confident. I thought I should observe first, so I didn't speak much on the first day. I happened to sit next to a young lady from Texas. She whispered in my ear, "I'm only here to not be in school. I don't really know what's going on." I thought to myself, how could you? How could you be so apathetic? She was dazed out most of the time. Well, I worked hard to be here, so I think I can say I know what's going on. Plus, it's only our first day. I assumed that she had attended these conferences many times prior to this one, since she wasn't excited to be here, but no. It was the first year for the both of us. I then found myself explaining the terms to her. Her questions varied from little things such as what does the quorum mean, to her asking me about the duties of the chairman. These are all points that my teachers taught me. This is when I realized that I was very well prepared for the conference. After all the homework assignments, the open debates, the structured debates, the after-school meetings we had in class, my teachers accurately prepared me for what I needed, not only for the conference room, but with life skills. Day one was more of me getting a feel for what to expect for the next 4 days. Day number 2, in the conference room, I was more involved in open discussions. I put my name on the speakers list, meaning I had to speak in front of people that I didn't know. As I went up to speak, I heard Mr. DiBernardo's voice, "You're going to go up there and kill it." My hands were shaking and my voice was unsteady, but I knew I had to step out of my comfort zone. After all, I knew that they were rooting for me. My team believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. They both said this trip would be a life-changing trip, and it sure was. I read somewhere that a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. This trip helped me become an optimist in life. It changed the way I looked at things. It helped me with my communication, public speaking. It made me encourage everyone around me to take advantage of opportunities in life, because it's all a learning experience. Without the support and knowledge of Mr. Huggins and Mr. DiBernardo, I'm not sure if I would have had the confidence I had in California and today. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Mia Edmondson reading her memoir titled Able.
Hey guys,
In June of 2013, I was 12 years old in the 6th grade. I made a discovery that changed my life forever. It all started when I was judged and teased excessively. Back then, I thought I was typical, just like everyone else, just more sensitive. I was constantly taunted. I was deliberately left out and called names. I never really understood why people picked on me or why they saw me as different. It was the usual Sunday evening when I got home from the park with my sister and my mom was cooking. We had a normal conversation until we brought up a little girl we knew with autism. My sister was curious and asked, "What's autism?" She was only 9, so she didn't know that autism was a thing. "It's a disability," my mom replied. Then I had the courage to ask my mom, "Do I have a disability?" I was suspicious because I had an IEP, so I knew I was different, but I thought it was just a behavioral thing. My mom confessed, "Yes, you have a disability." I was shocked. My jaw dropped to the ground. I asked, "Is it autism?" My mom grudgingly responded, "I don't know." I knew she always knew about my disability, but she just didn't feel comfortable having a conversation with me at the moment. At a very young age, my mom noticed that I started showing signs of developmental delays and I was falling behind in my speech and language development. She also noticed that I cried a lot and sometimes inconsolably. Usually at this age, kids start to point and say a bunch of words, but I failed to do these things. This was the first indicator for her that something wasn't right. Did I start talking at 2? No, Mia. 2.5? I asked again. A little bit later than that, about 3.5, she replied. Am I normal just like everybody else? I asked. You're a little bit different. My heart felt like it was pumping 1,000 beats per minute. I was shocked. These words, disability, different, were pulsing through my mind like a heartbeat. As I processed the staggering news, I knew my mom was hiding something. I just never understood what it was. The next day, I went to school and I had my speech therapy session. It was a hot, sunny Monday morning in June, and it was the day of field day at Thomas G. Connors Elementary School. As I stepped foot into the quiet, fresh-smelling speech therapy room, I felt horrified. As I sat down, I rested my arms on the quotes on the table. I had the conversation on my mind, so I decided to gather my courage and satisfy my curiosity and ask my speech teacher. My mom told me I had some kind of disability. Do you know what it could be? I had a stale, dry taste in my mouth. It felt like I was chewing on sandpaper. My heart raced like it was on the verge of bursting out of my chest as if someone threw a rock and hit me in the heart. It's autism. She finally informed me about my diagnosis. I was angry because I had been in denial for all those years, but at the same time, it felt like the rock had been pulled from my chest and with it came its weight. It took me some time to process this. My therapist and I then discussed the symptoms and nature of autism. As the feeling of relief ran through me, I asked questions like, did I have trouble with my speech when I was little? I was really interested in learning about my diagnosis. She responded, you did have trouble with your speech when you were little. Autism is not just about speech, it also impacts social interaction. Also, kids with autism have motor tics and twitches. This explains why I twitch, I replied. I was pleased to know why I didn't have many friends or maintain friendships easily, or why sometimes I behaved immaturely for my age. Luckily, my form of autism is high functioning, so I can achieve goals that a neurotypical person might. I think I'm lucky because people with much more severe forms aren't even able to speak, attend college, or even live independently. Although I still struggle in social situations occasionally and with odd behaviors, I'm very proud that I'm the very independent young adult that I am. Even though people sometimes underestimate my independence and maturity, I never let that hinder me from succeeding in life. This experience made me stronger and strive to work hard towards my goals. If it weren't for my courage, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
From your struggle?
So I've learned how to I got better at reading social cues when people when I cross a line when I'm about to, I stop my behaviors because in the past I've had trouble doing it, so that's why making friends was so hard for me because I would lose friendships. So God has made me even stronger. Thank you.
Now we have Leanna reading a piece of her memoirs entitled Lullaby.
I was okay, at first. All the chairs were decorated in a soft satin pink bow tie, and there were even pink lemonade freshman's drinks because pink lemonade was my grandmother's favorite drink. I chatted with my family members from all around the world. We talked about my abuelita's funniest moments and all the joy she brought to all her grandkids. It wasn't until we all had to enter the room where she laid that I felt spikes rise in my heart and fire in my lungs. I felt this sense of disparity and misery as I entered the room. I couldn't walk up to her. I couldn't. I was too scared to see her, and it was too hard to say goodbye. My mom walked up to me. "Hey baby, are you okay?"
My mom looked at me as a million more tears descended down my face. Finally having the courage to approach my grandma, my mom and I went together to see her. I stood there just looking at her. My heart ached and my stomach swirled in inside knots. It was hard saying my last goodbyes. She still looked the same, had the same beautiful golden hair, and the same wrinkled yet beautiful soft hands she'd always had. But when I touched her hand, she felt colder than any winter night. Yet she was beautiful and peaceful. I realized that's all that mattered. She was finally at peace. I didn't have to say goodbye. I will have my time with her when I go too. We will be together again in heaven. I still cry when I talk about you. I certainly believe you're there with me through every step. I feel you in my heart. I feel your presence when I look for prom dresses with my mom. I feel you when I feel lonely at night. I know you hate when I cry, abuelita, because you told me wrinkles are created faster when you cry. But I miss you, and I will never stop thinking about you.
What was your favorite memory with your grandma?
My favorite memory would have to be when we went to the lake and we were sitting in the tent, and it was right before high school was starting, and she had just told me to continue striving even after high school to be the best that I can. So I just use that as motivation to continue this journey.
We have Angel and Giselle Quinones and Michael Lisa singing
I will stand by you, even when we fall. I will be the rock that holds you up and lifts you high so you stand tall. I won't let you go. No one can take your place. Oh, I'll have Christ and lonely nights don't make it right to let go of the race.
And I won't let you fall.
He's everything I'm not. I'll take care of you and love you just because you and I are better than forever. Nothing can stop us. No matter where you are, no matter where you are, I'll be there.
We can be the generation who learns how to love. Mistakes and empty promises will never be enough. Sincere heart and shining hearts that beat inside us love. Let's count it up percentages and rise above the crowd. I won't let you fall. I won't let you go. No matter where you are, no matter where you are, I'll be there. No matter where you are, no matter where you are, I'll be there.
Now we have Andrew reading his memoir titled The Truth.
Hello? So I trembled from the pores of my head down my spine as I sat in the waiting room. Seconds felt like hours and hours felt like days. The time had come, and I could have stopped thinking about food. I was starving. My foot tapped against the linoleum of the floor as my impatience grew and grew. The glistening doorknob turned in a short nurse into the room. Silence echoed in the room like the depths of a prison. Her eyes revealed 1,000 words. The room was so quiet, my heart began to beat loud as my heard. The nurse looked down at my mother and said, "Señora Janet, por favor, acompáñame afuera." My mother followed the nurse outside, all alone in the room. I felt isolated and scared. Could they be talking about my test results, or did they find something worse? My stomach churned. My mother returned, but now there was fear in my eyes. A ghost had taken the body of my mother, and her face was pale. My mother and I sat in silence, and the stable chair squeaking with every movement. I struggled for it. The heavy breathing began to pick up as the door opened. A heavy-set man greeted me with a heavy Eastern European accent. "Hello, it is a pleasure to meet you." He sat down and began to flip through my file tab by tab. His bulging eyes worried, fed my growing anxiety. He slowly closed the folder and directed his eyes toward me. His blue eyes stared deep into my pitiful soul, and he said, "I'm sorry to say this, but you were borderline diabetic." All the sensation in my body felt left along with my ability to comprehend. My life forever felt altered. Understanding I was pre-diabetic at the age of 14 was pretty hard to handle. I had heard of so many people who had been overweight and who had been diagnosed with diabetes. The thought of being another statistic brought fear into my eyes. Tears filled my eyes as the doctor continued to talk to me. How could this have happened to me? Was I going to be a diabetic? The walls of the room felt as if they were closing in on me, as if my world was coming to a spiraling wall. "Andrew, if you continue to live this lifestyle you do now, it will end up making you a type 2 diabetic in the long run." These words were the encouragement I needed. The goal of my life was never clear. I needed to be able, if I wanted to better myself in life, I'd have to put one foot forward in front of the other and create my own path for the future. Change was needed in my lifestyle. The process of going from an overweight 14-year-old to a self-conscious and self-determined 16-year-old individual deemed to be effective. The journey to a better future required a mental change. I had to give up what I felt brought me happiness and realize happiness is achieved within oneself. The journey was hard-fought and won, and it led me to where I stand today, proud to reveal the person that I have become and the inspiration that I hope filled the hearts of those struggling we lost.
So after your weight loss journey, how do you view your
life and life in general differently.
Walk and see life as you wake up every day and you serve a purpose in the world. To either take it by the hand and make it your own and hopefully create the future for other individuals as well.
Now we have Angel reading his memoir titled The Heart of a Giant.
We got some seniors, yo. That's it. Alright. My memoir, The Heart of a Giant. See, okay. My grandmother put down the phone. Ya viene alguien con su locomotora. I was 9 and sitting on my grandmother's couch. My uncle was coming by with a brand new Yamaha motorcycle. The engine roared down the hill as he and his friend pulled up on their cherry red, dark orange, and black motorcycles. Vamos a Cleveland. My mother called me from the living room. I ran past them to look out the window. He was in front of the house. I ran downstairs to join the others as we gathered to admire his new prized possession. We all got a chance to hop his motorcycle. As I sat on the soft leather seat of his bike, I grabbed the handles. My uncle slid his helmet over my head, which smelled like his fresh haircut, and I was on top of the world. My uncle was more of a brother to me than an uncle. We were huge sports fans. We loved shouting at the TV as we rooted for the Giants and the Miami Heat, and we loved talking smack about each other's favorite baseball teams. I was a Yankee fan, and he was an unfortunate Mets fan. I remember the day my uncle invited me to the Giants game. My father was on the phone with him in my sister's room when he called me over. I always got tickets to the Giants and Cowboys game this Sunday, and he wants to take you. You in? All right, cool, I'm down. Inside, I was jumping up and down, stoked to watch such a game. I love being with my uncle. His full name was Abi Malek Cruz, but everyone called him Abi. He was the coolest guy you ever meet. 2 years have passed since the Giants game, and I received the news that warped our family forever. I was in the production of Shrek the Musical at my school when I got a text. It was my mother. Be ready to leave after school. After rehearsal, we need to go see Abi. It's an emergency. Confused, I texted back. What's going on? Is everything all right? We texted back and forth until my mother finally used the term colon cancer. Unfazed, I thought it would be all okay and that he'd be with us forever. But that's not how things went down. God had given our family tribulation in the past. My grandmother passed away when I was in 6th grade, and 2 months later my great-grandfather passed away. And even one of my closest friends got into a severe car accident on his college campus. We had known tragedy, but we were positive that Abi's diagnosis would be cleared away in no time. Things didn't go as we planned, even when the chemotherapy took his fresh fade away, or when he got laid off by a company he worked for 8 years, or when he had to move in with his wife's family, he still kept a smile on his face. Colon cancer may have been beating his body, but it wasn't beating his spirit. 3 years had passed since his diagnosis. He eventually got a new job with his father-in-law and even got to travel. He was enjoying life despite his cancer. Unfortunately, reality eventually hit. He told us about losing his feeling in his hands while driving, and his eating habits changed. He lost a great deal of weight. He was a walking toothpick. The doctors told him there was very little hope and that he had only 2% of his liver left. 2%. Surgery was not an answer, and the waiting list was too long for a new liver. Every day we visited him in North Hilton. It looked like his soul was being taken away day by day. Watching him struggle trying to walk up the stairs, or even like a baby, we were in disbelief that Abi, the happiest guy around, was dying. His father, His father came to Puerto Rico to be with him. We could see the pain in his eyes as he looked into his son's failing body. We would sit in the living room, sobbing as Abi slept. When my grandfather would cry, a stream of sadness would electrify the room, and everyone would cry with him. I remember the last moments with my uncle. We sat on the couch together. He was dressed in his jeans and hoodie, and of course his Jordans. He wanted to lay down, and he stretched his legs across my lap. He was showing off his new pair of Jordans, his last pair of Jordans. The next day I was called out of class. I knew why, but I didn't want to accept it. The security guard let me into the alcove saying my mom was in there, and when I opened the door, I saw my sister and my mother. Their faces were as red as tomatoes and tears were streaming down their faces. Se foi Abby, my mother sobbed. I covered my face immediately. Flashbacks of me seeing him when I was a kid, hopping on his brand new motorcycle, or us dancing to J's on my feet with our first kick song, flew through my mind. I cried everything away inside of me. He was gone, and I was broken. As I sat near his casket with my head down, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was one of my best friends, a girl I grew up with and someone who was important to me in my life. As I looked around the room, I saw friends and teachers from school. I knew people were there for me, even though my uncle couldn't be there now. Abby, who had the heart of a giant, is my unforgettable uncle. He was the light of every room he entered. I love him so much, and may you rest in peace.
Considering the Giants' last season, what do you think your Uncle Abby would have said?
He would have been mad as hell. We were talking about it every Sunday, how Odell got hurt and all the stuff happened, so we were mad at him.
Next up, we have Serena Roman reading her memoir, It Takes a Village.
Good morning, guys. There's something about my mother's voice that is usually so soothing, but this day it was different. Her voice cracked as her words punctured my chest. My throat swelled and my mom wrapped her arms around me. I stared at the ground. Inside I was crying, but no tears would come out. Memories of him flooded my head. It was so surreal. I just couldn't believe he was gone, and she kept saying, he loved you, he's in a better place. She's always tried to find the good in every bad situation, but why do bad things happen to good people? We all knew that the monster inside of him was slowly eating him alive. Just cry, I told myself, but the tears refused to come out. My mom continued to rub my back, repeating, it's okay. And I learned in that instant, life wasn't going to pause because I was sad, and she was here to guide me through this hard time. We stood in the kitchen for what felt like forever. Minutes passed, and it just got harder. Finally, tears began to flow down my cheek. I began to believe her words. She squeezed me tighter. I laid my head on her shoulder as my tears soaked her shirt. I never looked up. I kept my eyes closed. I knew my mom was upset, but I knew she wasn't crying. I didn't have to look at her. I just knew. She made it easier for me to keep my sanity. She looked down at me and smirked, and I smiled. I knew everything was going to be okay. This was just one of the many times my mother has been there for me. She was always that parent at every sports game, performance, parents' night, and doctor's appointment. And for a long time, it was just the three of us. Me and my brother and my mom. But soon we met a person that would help mold and shape us into a stronger, blended family. He's my stepdad, and I've known him for 11 years. He has been a true role model for me, and has taught me how to be emotional and strong at the same time. I am lucky to have several people in my life who care and support me. My uncle was one of those people who always had my back no matter what happened. I was always so happy to see him whenever he came over to get food or go on our mini adventures to take Lenny to his Little League baseball practices or games, even when my grandparents said no. My mom and uncle never let me down.
They always kept their promises and always supported me in every way. Now that my uncle is gone, I do believe he's in a better place, and I am grateful that he is no longer in pain. No one deserves to feel like the life is getting sucked out of them, and no one deserves to see someone they love losing the most precious thing they have. My uncle's death was among one of the hardest times of my life. During his wake, my mom and I went out to the castle together, but when I saw him, he didn't look the same. He was a tall, lanky male, and when I saw him, he looked as if he hadn't eaten in months. You good? His hands were so bony. He didn't look like the same person I once knew. On the way to the bathroom, I witnessed my grandmother bawling her eyes out. When she saw me, she wrapped her arms around me and reassured me everything was going to be okay. My grandpa stayed outside the viewing room dressed in his all-black suit. He couldn't see his brother like that. He looked at me, and I could see in his eyes that he would never get over this. But he smiled and grabbed my hand and squeezed it tight. My uncle was admitted into the ICU shortly after he was diagnosed. My grandparents would visit him almost every day and sometimes bring him pureed food. Every time when they went, it seemed he had gotten worse, and the jar began coming back more and more full. The cancer spread quickly and took over every part of his body. Though it was a hard time, my mom and my family made it easier for me to cope. I appreciate them for always being there for me and believing in me even when I don't believe in myself. Often I take my family for granted, and I believe that they're supposed to be there because they don't have a choice, but they do. They don't have to stand by me and believe in me or love me unconditionally. There are not enough words to express my gratitude towards these amazing people. I am thankful for my crazy, loving family, and most importantly, to the woman who gave me life and who would give up anything to see me at my best. I love you.
What is your favorite memory with him?
Honestly, I felt like just his presence just made like your day better. So, I mean, everyone was better.
Oh, it's sad. When I wake up, I start looking at everybody's face, and everybody looked like my brother for a second. Even I would look in the mirror, I saw Woody's face looking back at me. My mom must have noticed the puzzled look on my face, asked me, "You still dream about Woody? I know it was wrong what he did, but he left me to at such a young age. There's a place somewhere in your heart to forgive him for leaving. I know it's been a while since he passed, but he was here, still here. You wouldn't see you just like him." Next thing I know, I start wearing stuff to catch his attention. I am proud to wear stuff everywhere I go. I look at his pictures, look how he wore his jacket and pants. When I wore them, I look in the mirror, hope that I was putting a smile on his face as he looked down at me from his dorm room in the clouds. I saw him everywhere right now. I went to work and saw my best friend pick it up cigarette wraps in front of City Hall. Started talking for a little bit, and Woody was there too. Then we went on in separate ways. I went to the store, told the DJ to play some relaxing music. As soon as he was digging to the sessions of the music, I said Woody looking over his shoulder. Next, I went to Dunkin' Donuts to buy a box full of donuts and a cup of coffee. Looking at me when I'm outside was Woody. I went outside, talked to him. I said, "Woody, I'm okay now. You showed me the way of forgiveness. I forgive you for leaving us, and I am proud to wear your clothes on the green earth to honor you. That's why I have been following you, AJ. You never asked me if you could wear my clothes when I saw you last night." I smiled and went on my way. Ended up at my friend's house, and we started playing Kanye West songs. We chilled and kicked for a little bit, so I played Fortnite stuff. Then I started to smile, and my friend wanted to know what I was smiling at.
I tell them that everybody will have like the game.
Reading her memoir, Home is Where the Heart Is.
Hi everyone, probably can't see me, I'm really My cousin and brother and I were getting sick of the conversations at home. We just wanted to get out of the house to get our minds off of the situation at hand. Sitting at the table, chin in the palm of my hand, foot tapping, I waited for the boys to get their coats so we could leave. The town's a mess, seriously, you guys can't just stay here. Mother's nagging pierced my ears. Mom, we're just going up the street to Rita's for some fresh air, let us be. Oh, leave them alone, Dad. Aunt Rose thought it would be good for us to go hang out together. We walked down the streets of the town that I know like the back of my hand, the town that I love, but it felt different. This is all so weird, I said. Stunned to my surroundings, just a few days before, I was sitting comfortably in my house, eating dinner with my family like any other day. Then, in the blink of an eye, we found ourselves scrambling, grabbing anything we could salvage, rushing out of my home as the water rushed in. We only walked a few blocks, but it seemed as though we walked for miles. It was a ghost town. There was an obvious absence of energy. The first days of November came with light gusts of wind and a dull gray sky. Trails of sewage and trash lined the curbs. Dozens of sandbags were scattered in front of boarded up homes and stores, the wooden planks blocking out all light and all life. The town that was usually lively, hustling and bustling with cars and people, was quiet and empty. The emptiness didn't sit right with me, but compared to all the chaos from just a few nights before, the atmosphere was actually somewhat peaceful. Amidst all of the destruction, there was a sort of serenity, because though the community was torn apart, it was at the same time united. Free coffee read the sign outside of the man's open garage. The kind resident had set up a table on the sidewalk where hot coffee brewed and cookies were laid out for those who passed by. Free Wi-Fi, use as you please, said another, displaying the password generously for anybody who needed it. Tangled orange cords ran down the steps of one stoop and onto the sidewalk where neighbors and strangers sat with each other to charge up. Laughter erupted and conversations were started among people who didn't even know each other. Returning to my aunt's house later that night, I saw family and friends sitting around with the table, laughing and stuffing their faces with pasta, meatballs, and pizza. Dad cooked it all up in the kitchen. Somebody was in the shower, someone else was washing clothes. The reason for our gathering wasn't ideal, but the feeling was bittersweet. In a time of need, family and friends flocked to my aunt's house, one of the only houses in the city that remained untouched. They were there not only for the electricity and the pasta and the water, but they were there to surround themselves with love and laughter. We lived with my aunt for about 2 months after the storm. It took some getting used to, but in time I was able to call the place my home. Looking back at it all now, I have learned to count my blessings. When we first arrived, we were just taking it day by day. We couldn't imagine how much time and energy and money and stress it would take to make things go back to normal. But we were just lucky to have a place to stay with loved ones who gave us the time to figure things out. My family, my backbone. I truly believe everything happens for a reason. We had to leave our home and move in with family during a time when they needed us and we needed them more than ever. It took us about 8 months to finally get back home. The long months to follow the storm were a struggle, but while our spirits were temporarily dampened, we persevered and our family ties were forever strengthened.
So even after Hurricane Sandy, why did you and your family stay in Hoboken?
stayed in Hoboken because we've been here our entire lives, and even though our house wasn't the same, it was different, you know, the energy was still there, like, that was still our home, so.
Although it's not senior year yet, let's all take a moment to appreciate and acknowledge the long way we've come. From being the first seventh grade class in Hoboken High history, having all come from different schools, we managed to blend together and form friendships, stronger connections, and deeper relationships we wouldn't have had in other circumstances. Family. Through the best of times and the worst of times, we have been able to overcome the obstacles placed in front of us with family, and not just our blood family, but the family we formed with each other. We, the class of 2019, are our family, and as we dedicate our junior memoirs to those who have shaped our beings, let's appreciate not only our classmates, but the people we choose to have in our lives. Thank you.